Hey, what's up, everybody? Real quick, this is just a follow-up to the DC telemetry and audio from the DC helicopter plane crash. In that video, I was just riffing. I was just pointing out some of the odd things that I thought were strange. In this video, we're gonna listen to a pilot explain what he thinks happened, just get his opinion. Obviously, there's still information that needs to come out, but he has the full audio, including from the BlackHawk helicopter. It doesn't take away any of the points that I made in the video. That was just a very small point. I just thought it was strange that we couldn't hear them responding. Apparently, some people that hate watch me thought that meant that I was unaware that other radio frequencies existed and that was, like, definitive proof that the Blackhawk ignored it, and it's a rogue agent that slammed into the plane. I'm just dude, I'm just talking. I'm just a regular person just talking, saying, Doesn't this seem strange? Isn't this weird?" Yeah, because it is. Um, I'd love to ask this pilot a question, just ask him what he thought about the helicopter almost looking like it was almost gonna collide with the first plane, and then went straight into the second plane. Just strange. That was the first thing that I was questioning in that video was, why did it look like it almost hit, the first plane, it turned and went straight into the second plane? Just weird. Second was just the audio being missing from the Blackhawk, but we'll hear it in this video. No big deal. Um, I said that, you can't really see the altitudes, on the 2D telemetry screen. I'm aware. Are you aware of how 2D screens work? Of course, it's not going to show us the elevation and what where they were at in real life. And the final thing, really, that I was confused about was why it seemed like the tower gasped and saw the crash in the sky, and then kind of really didn't say anything about it for a minute or two on the radio, until somebody else, another air traffic controller or a different tower or whatever it was, called out crash, 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 alert 3. And then the tower started asking where. And it's just like, did we not just hear you all gasp and say, "Oh my god," in the background? It's just weird. It was just strange. I talked about how it's possible maybe this helicopter was unmanned, and maybe that's why they didn't respond. Even if the pilot did respond, that doesn't mean that they were inside that helicopter. I'm sorry to spoil your gotcha. Just because they respond on radio doesn't mean that they were inside the helicopter. And I'm not saying that they weren't inside the helicopter. I'm just saying that that helicopter it's capable of being flown remotely. My God, everyone, shut up. Oh, that's why we're waiting for all the information to come out, and my video is just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. Relax. Okay, listen to this pilot.
Here's what happened last night. I'm able to secure the actual audio from the incident over the Potomac last night. Let's listen in together.
79 contact so far. Good day. Okay. American 3130 for the final.
You're going to see a back and forth now between Reagan Tower and the various aircraft that they have lined up on approach into the airport. This happened at about 8:46 p.m. Last evening, and you can see there's several airplanes lined up. That's typical coming in about that time of night at Reagan. They're talking to American Airlines 3130. Which I think is number 2 for the runway. They're telling them to slow down to their final approach speed because they're separating everybody on the way in. It's going to turn out that American 3130 is a key player in what happens here.
Well, American 3130. Pat 25, traffic just off the Wilson Bridge is CRJ.
Pat 25 is the helicopter that ran into the CRJ 700. It was a PSA flight. The flight number is 5342. It would go under the call sign Blue Streak 5342. You don't ever hear them talking to tower. They've already been cleared to land on runway 33. So they would come in on an approach on runway 1, and then they would kind of circle the land on runway 33. It's a little shorter runway, but they take some of the regional jets and they put them on that runway. Pat 25 is the BlackHawk helicopter that is just south of the Woodrow Bridge. And they've just taken off. They're airborne. The tower is saying to them, there's traffic. It's a CRJ. It's at 1,200 feet lined up for runway 33. Do you have that traffic? Pat 25 is going to call back and say yes.
It's 1,200 feet, start runway 33.
Pat 25 says, has the traffic in sight, request visual separation. What that means is that they're going to take responsibility for visual separation from that aircraft. What happened Here's what I think happened. This is not the final word on it, but what I think happened was it was at night. There's several airplanes lined up. There is that Blue Streak 5342, which is a CRJ that they ran into. Right behind them, just a few miles, is American 3130. Everybody has their lights on as they're coming in. I believe the helicopter looked at the American 3130 and said, I've got the traffic in sight, and they never saw the airplane, the CRJ that was right next to them. That's my conjecture on what happens.
Special separation. This separation proof. American 1630 tower, runway 1 lock void, traffic through outside runway 33, dispatch 16 off final.
So this is typical stuff that's going on in a busy airport. They're lining somebody up to take off. They're saying, pay attention. I'm going to give you an immediate takeoff here. I've got traffic lining up for runway 33. That's the CRJ that got ran into. And he's on a 6-mile final. And it might be somebody even behind him, but they're lining everybody up to take off and to land.
Yeah, and just that little bit of audio there is why I thought it was strange on the audio and telemetry that I had on the first video, because after they say Pat 25, do you see this? Do you have the CRJ in sight? There's a quick pause, and then there's another excerpt that comes in after that. That's just says it said something like Viz. I can't. It just put it in parentheses, and it was all abbreviated. But you couldn't really hear him. It was muffled, and they must have cut it out. But it said. And I can't remember exactly what it said, but it said something like Viz Rec app, like, visual request approved. So I thought maybe somebody said something and it just wasn't included, but I didn't really talk about it too much in the video because it was kind of irrelevant. But that's what made it odd. Whenever they asked them if they had visual confirmation, you don't hear the audio, and then they kind of put a call sign into like an abbreviation of it, just saying, the visual separation was approved, I guess is what that was being shown. I wish it was just in the other audio, but anyway, we have it now. All right, let him continue. And yeah, you could kind of tell with this airport, he has everything lined up. You can see the airplanes coming in and they're all lined up, and the helicopter going in the opposite direction, trying to go in the same line, basically. I saw another article too that said that people complained about the route that those helicopters take all the time, because you can see that it doesn't seem very smart, does it? Okay.
Please keep 5307. Keep rolling out to November, South 47 today.
You can see at the bottom of your screen there, the CRJ, the Blue Streak 5342, they're beginning to now kind of come out a little bit to line up the runway, to land on runway 33. They're not going to go right straight down the river. They got to come out a little bit wider and come in. But remember, Pat 25, which is up here, the helicopter at the middle of your screen, they've already said, we accept responsibility for visual separation.
American 1630 to 1 star 3214, Duck 25, traffic 2 mile up base runway 33, no delay, runway 1 clear for immediate
Clears
takeoff.
American to take off.
Clear for takeoff, American 1630.
Here it comes.
CRJ in sight.
Now the tower is seeing what's happening, and they're saying, do you have the CRJ in sight? Because you guys are getting kind of close. And the Pat 25, the helicopter, says once again, yeah, and I'm asking for visual separation. Okay, the responsibility is on you then.
Pat 25, pass line is CRJ.
Pat 25 has an aircraft in sight, request visual separation.
Okay, so Pat 25 says, has the aircraft in sight, request visual separation. I don't think they had these guys in sight. I think they had the airplane behind them in sight. That's why this is such a tragedy.
American 4782 by Batten now for a visual.
American 472, Austin Tower 1 star 32017.
So you hear somebody in the tower go, oh, and they see what just happened. As you can see in your screen here, the collision took place. The tower has seen it happen in real time. They're human beings. They're reacting just like you and I would. The helicopter ran into the CRJ. The CRJ's airspace was their airspace. In front of them, behind them, on both sides of them, it was a responsibility of the helicopter to maintain visual separation. They even told him a couple times, do you got him in sight? Do you got him in sight? He said, yep, got him in sight. I'm accepting responsibility for the separation. And I think just like when you're driving in a car and you look and you see a car behind the one that almost hit you, you see that car and you didn't see the one right here. And when you turn out in front, sometimes there's a collision. It's really tragic when this happens in an airplane. Again, it's been decades since there's been a mid-air collision in this country. This is such an unusual circumstance to take place. It's such a tragedy. It's been 12 years since there's been a fatality in a commercial airliner here in the United States. That's unprecedented. And that wasn't a mid-air collision. That was just an accident. This is a mid-air collision, and this hasn't happened in forever. So now we know what's going on here. Pat 25, the helicopter, accepted responsibility for visual separation. They probably had their eyes on the airplane behind them, and then they tragically ran into these guys.
Did you see that? 472. American 3130, go around, turn left end 250, climb maintain 3000.
So now what happens from the tower's perspective is they have to work through denial pretty fast. They just saw this happen in real time in front of them. They're human beings like the rest of us. They're kind of in shock. But they've still got airplanes coming in. They've got American Airlines 1630, which just took off. They've got to hand them off to departure. They got American 3130 that's coming in. They got American 472 behind them. They got to do something with these airplanes. Right? The airplane port is going to be shut here in a second. So they're going to start telling all these guys to go around while they're trying to handle the emergency and get the emergency equipment out. And all of that is, everybody's kind of in a little fog for a few seconds here while all of this is taking place. The tragedy of it hits you hard. And they're very professional. Watch how they handle this. But man, they're busy.
You know, with anything that the government is involved in, I'm a natural skeptic with anything, with or without the government involved. And anytime they're involved, my antenna just raise up another 50 feet. I can just like I said in the original video, I can accept it's just being just a horrible accident that happened. But you have to admit, just like he's saying, this stuff doesn't happen very often, and just the helicopters, the way that it went, it just didn't make a lot of sense. And I can accept, and I said that I was okay with how the air traffic controllers in the tower were responding and being, because they were being professional. They were kind of, they weren't panicking, and I was okay. I was like, I'm good with them not panicking. I'm just curious why they kind of seemed to thought they did their jobs. They immediately started telling the planes. I could tell, even though they weren't telling the planes, "Oh my God, there was a huge wreck, so go and fly around for a while." They immediately started telling all the other planes that were lined up to come in to go to 3,000 feet and wait, and they were kind of just stalling everyone while they were figuring out what to do. I just thought it was odd that, whenever somebody finally called in to crash, they seemed to be like, "Oh, where?" It's just like, and just where, and I can accept it. They do this for a living. That's why I do something different for a living. That's why I wanted to hear from the pilot and see what he had to say. And I can accept them being in a fog and seeing something crazy happen and just needing to handle the next planes in line and get them stalled so they can wait while they wait. It just seemed weird what they did, why they didn't just start calling out to start getting help to wherever they saw a collision. And then whenever someone did call it in, they just kind of were in a fog, like he said, and maybe that's all that it was. None of this stuff changes the idea of that helicopter having people in it or being flown remotely. That stuff is irrelevant. I'm more concerned with the people on the civilians on an airplane that perished. That's my concern and why I'm skeptical of anything the government does. And if they're involved in an accident, I'm going to question it no matter what. So let's see if he says anything else important. But ultimately, we're all still just waiting. Even this pilot that's given his opinion, he's still waiting. Everyone's just waiting. And while we wait, I'm gonna let my imagination go, and we're gonna talk about it because that's what I do here.
Okay, let's hang 350, 3000, American 3130.
Tower Boost Streak 5347 is on final. Request runway 33, circle to 33.
Second heading for American 3130. American 3130, go around, turn left end 270, climb maintain 3000. 270 on the heading, 3000.
See how fast he's talking? He's trying to get all these other airplanes out of here.
Crash. This is Alert 3. Crash.
Okay, what's MWAA? It's the Metro Washington Airport Authority. Every airport has some sort of governing authority over it. Many times it's called the Port Authority. Up in Boston, it's Mass Port, right? In New York, it's the Port Authority. Down here in Washington, it's the Metro Washington Airport Authority. They're now announcing officially there's a crash. So they go over the radio and they broadcast to everybody. The tower is the main recipient of this, that there's been a crash. He's going to repeat that. That puts a whole bunch of things into motion all at the same time. The fire crews now are going to jump in their uniforms. They're going to get in their fire trucks. They're going to drive to where the crash is. There's going to be details about this coming, but this whole thing is very frenzied and happens very fast. But these are really highly trained professionals. They do a really terrific job.
Alert 3. Crash, crash, crash. This is Alert 3.
And Alert 3 is a crash.
Oh, shit. Where's the Alert 3? It is off the approaching the runway 33. Approaching the runway 33. Helicopter crash. Helicopter. Copy out this morning. Crash, crash, crash. This is Alert 3. 2 helicopters.
Okay, so again, fog of war. The first report that they get is that it's 2 helicopters. They're going to clarify this really quickly because the tower is talking back and forth to them. The tower is going to say, nope, it was a CRJ and a helicopter. So they get this cleared up pretty fast.
Well, helicopter CRJ approaching the runway 33.
That's really fast.
The approaching the runway 33, a mile off final. Crash, crash, crash.
Okay, cool. I'm glad he clarified that as well because I think in the first video, whenever I said the person that called out the crash, crash, crash alert 3, I said, was it an airplane? I think is what I said because I wasn't sure because I didn't know what MWAA was. That's why ultimately I wanted to find this video and do this video. But yeah, I thought it maybe was a representative of an airline, whether it be in the sky or another department on the ground on the airport, and that's exactly what it was. Ultimately, I can accept it. I just like I said, I still find it odd that he's calling to the tower to tell the tower, and they still all need to do their procedural stuff. I mean, for the tower needs, the tower needs them to say on the radio where it's at anyway. So, they're looking from the tower from very far away. I can understand it being far away and them not knowing exactly where the crash is at. And you're better off with the guy on the ground reporting the crash to say where it's at on the radio so everyone can respond properly. So that all makes sense to me. I just think, especially whenever they start to get an incorrect report to helicopters, and they did correct it pretty fast, and say no, it was a helicopter and a CRJ, but it's just like the tower knew that already. It seemed like they could have. This audio is not in perfect timeline chronological order, because this audio is even different than the first audio I listened to. So which one is the correct audio, and who is editing it, and who is chopping and putting what where? And anyway, I'm just going to end it here because ultimately it's just conjecture and it's just him guessing anyway, and just him just giving his opinion the same way that I am. I don't do this for a living. He does. That's why I wanted his opinion. And it doesn't change me asking questions and wanting to and just say this is odd, that's odd. I can accept your answer regardless. And I'll wait for an official story to come out, and then I will then still research and look into the reality of what I can see as a civilian versus their official military released, story on what they say. No matter what, if people died, you feel bad about it. It's a tragedy. It is what it is. I'm not trying to go one way or another. I'm not trying to make it really political. I haven't really even talked about politics with any of this stuff. I'm just saying in general, I don't trust the government, and I don't think you should. Um, anyway, all right, I'll end it here. I just wanted to clear this up, clear up the audio stuff. I had some hate watchers come, and some hate watcher wants me to make a tariff video because of the 25% tariff threats that are coming and going. I assume he wants me to do it because he wants it to look bad for Trump, probably, I'm guessing. I don't know. I'll still cover it, but I'm not gonna cover it when he wants me to. I'm gonna cover it when I get a chance to. Calm down, Cap. Um, hate watchers killing me, bruh. Give me what's wrong with you? I appreciate your impressions. I appreciate you hate watching and commenting your hate regardless. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.